What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Friday, April 2nd. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 10-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. I like Ja Morant from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have the absolute worst defense overall, and they give up the fourth most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Ja Morant has averaged 35.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 29% usage rate. He scored 53, 28, and 16 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 35, 33, and 26 minutes. He's projected at 35.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's $6,800 FanDuel salary, and he's $800 more on DraftKings. So I like that FanDuel price. But he scored 42, 40, and 38 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Timberwolves, and he has 2 50-point-plus fantasy point games out of the past 5 games. So I like Ja Morant here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Oh, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 232 points scored in this game, so it's a fantastic matchup and a high-scoring game. So I definitely like Ja Morant, especially on FanDuel, here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, another point guard that I like, especially on DraftKings, is Dennis Schroeder from the LA Lakers playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the second worst defense overall, and they give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Dennis Schroeder has averaged 28.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 23% usage rate. Now we know his role has expanded on the team. He had a 28, 27, and 27% usage rate in the last 3 games, and he scored 36, 42, and 42 fantasy points in 31, 36, and 31 minutes. Now, he's only projected at 29.9 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he should at least get you 35 fantasy points or more, and on DraftKings, that will be 5 times value or more. He's $8,000 FanDuel salary, but he's $900 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. Now, he scored 46, 27, 43, 25, and 21 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Kings. But if you take a look at his last 5 games, you'll see he's been scoring 36 to 43 fantasy points in all of his last 5 games. So he's been productive. So I like that DraftKings price. It's a great matchup. So I like Dennis Schroeder here versus the Sacramento Kings. Oh, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 223.5 points scored in that game. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Marcus Smart from the Boston Celtics playing the Houston Rockets, who have the 3rd worst defense overall, and they give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Marcus Smart has averaged 29.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. He scored 43, 27, and 27 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 35, 38, and 37 minutes. He's projected at 31.2 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.5 times value. He's $5,700 FanDuel salary and $300 more on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, and he scored 9, 52, 33, 18, and 28 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Rockets. He's been playing really well the past 5 games, scoring 27 to 43 fantasy points. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 224 points scored in this game. So I like Marcus Smart here versus the Houston Rockets. Okay, another shooting guard that I like is Anthony Edwards from the Minnesota Timberwolves playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Anthony Edwards has averaged 28.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. He scored 46, 43, and 37 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 35, 35, and 34 minutes. He's projected at 38 fantasy points here tonight, and even on FanDuel, that's 4.9 times value, because he's $7,800 FanDuel salary, but he's $700 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. So Vegas thinks there's going to be 232 points scored in this game. So a high-scoring game, a fast-paced game, and a good matchup. So I like Anthony Edwards here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? I like Chris Middleton from the Milwaukee Bucks playing the Portland Trailblazers, who have the 9th worst defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing small forwards, Chris Middleton has averaged 36.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 25% usage rate. He scored 37 and 21 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 35 and 35 minutes. He's projected at 36.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. He's $7,600 FanDuel salary and $400 more on DraftKings. So I like this pick because he scored 42, 38, 40, and 40 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Trailblazers. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 236.5 points scored in this game. So it's the highest projected total, the highest scoring game on the slate. So I like Chris Middleton here versus the Portland Trailblazers. Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. I like Draymond Green from the Golden State Warriors playing the Toronto Raptors, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing power forwards. Draymond Green has averaged 30.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 13% usage rate. He scored 48, 34, and 12 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 35, 33, and 27 minutes. He's projected at 31.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. He's $6,600 FanDuel salary and $100 more on DraftKings. Now, I like this pick because he scored 36, 60, 38, and 43 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Raptors. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game. So I like Draymond Green here versus the Toronto Raptors.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz playing the Chicago Bulls, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the second most fantasy points to opposing centers. Rudy Gobert has averaged 41.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. He scored 35, 56, and 40 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 36, 27, and 26 minutes. He's projected at 40.2 fantasy points here tonight. On FanDuel, that's 4.7 times value because he's $8,500 FanDuel salary, but he's $600 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. And he scored 63, 38, 53, 50, and 36 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Bulls. So that's excellent player versus team history. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 229 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup. So I like Rudy Gobert here versus the Chicago Bulls. Okay, another center that I like is DeAndre Ayton from the Phoenix Suns playing the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have the 4th worst defense overall, and they give up the 13th most fantasy points to opposing centers. DeAndre Ayton has averaged 32.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. He scored 21, 34, and 31 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 31, 29, and 33 minutes. He's projected at 33.2 fantasy points here tonight. Now on FanDuel, that's 4.7 times value because he's $7,000 FanDuel salary, but he's $500 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 219.5 points scored in this game. And he's had some mixed success versus the OKC, scoring 21, 16, 32, and 37 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Thunder. But I think his salary is way too low on DraftKings. He's averaging over 30 fantasy points per game on the season, so he would be averaging over 5 times value on DraftKings. So I like DeAndre Ayton, especially on DraftKings, here versus the Oklahoma City Thunder.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.